Oh, hey. Ooh, right away. Alright, I'm good. I'm good. So far, so good. We're gonna attempt to do some stuff, I guess. We're gonna play some creepypasta in the background while I do some trucking. But how are you? I'm doing great. I went to the Renaissance Fair today with my partner. We were going because someone was celebrating their birthday. We didn't even see them that much, but we still went. Alright, and those are a reminder, those of you who are on the purple can do exclamation burgie and also exclamation fish. But that's only on the purple, sadly. Okay, so let's start this other thing. Let's think about it. Do the sound. How loud it is.
Estimated reading time 53 seconds. Daughter. Estimated reading time 53 minutes.
Okay, cool.
The madness of the eyes is the law of the abyss. Sirens lurk in the dark depths of people. They lurk at the sea that I know for sure. Jean Loring, Monsieur de Foucault's, hidden along the gloomy northwest coast of England, where the churning grey waters of the Irish Sea crash and break endlessly on ancient British sandstone, there can be found numerous isolated communities nestling in the lone Cumbrian countryside. Many of these hamlets are little more than decaying farming communities maintained by clannish families who bear names that were still ancient when the first drops of ink were spilled onto the pages of the Domesday Book. One of the more prominent towns, Seaskill, a former Victorian resort that has suddenly dragged its feet towards modernity over the last century. Just 90 years ago, Seascale was little more than a collection of farms, but the Furness Railway Company had come along in 1879 and connected.
Put down. I like.
Just 90 years ago, Seascale was little more than a
Change it.
collection of farms, but the Furness Railway Company had come along in one.
Can I turn the sounds down? There we go. There's the settings button. Speed slower. Pitch lower. Volume there. Text highlight sure and show in separate window. Test.
Read aloud is a Chrome and Firefox. Read aloud is Chrome and Firefox extension that uses speech technology to
And now we do it?
schedule and 6. Estimated reading time 38 minutes. On the train. I can't say why I was chosen to ride the shuttle.
Oh, thank you for the
Express.
GG. Thank you. I appreciate it. And the TikTok.
During their mortal lives.
Thank you.
Perhaps all will be forced to face a demon.
Should I pause it? I don't even know if I should pause it. Where is the thing? Where's the thing? Oh yes, much appreciated. Very much so. Is there something around here that I can... Can I do something? Where do I kind of want to go up here because this is like the most higher point. The highest point. Let's just go there. Let's try it out. Let's see. We'll go to the highest point that we can get. Highest left point.
Let's go.
Gotta always do that every once in person. And Here, I can give you a like. I can. Any other people giving you new likes too? Okay. Likes everywhere. Go here. Hold on.
Perhaps all will be forced to face their demons in the end, for sure. But clearly the odyssey I was thrust into was not of my choosing. I wouldn't have boarded the ghost train if I'd known the horrors which lay before me. Despite the terror I've lived through and the people I've lost, I strangely feel like I'm a better man because of it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's not much I can tell you about myself. I'm not here to recount my life story. I never thought of myself as a bad person. I've done bad things which resulted in people getting hurt. I've worked in the corporate world for most of my life and never had a problem with screwing people over to advance my career. My company has a culture of working hard, playing hard, and I was one of the greatest proponents of this
Alright, let's
domestic
go to the
lifestyle.
corner of
On
the
the
United
fateful
States.
night when I boarded the express, I had been out on the town partying and drinking hard before making a mad dash for the last train home. Honestly, I remember little about the sequence of events that night. It all passed by in a drunken blur. I vaguely recall running through an abandoned train station, buying a paper ticket from a dead-eyed attendant, sprinting down the platform and jumping inside the carriage mere seconds
Over
before the doors swung shut.
9,000!
I was panting and sweating by the time I entered the nondescript train carriage. I felt satisfied because I had made it just in the nick of time. I remember smiling as I collapsed down upon the cushioned seat at an empty booth, hearing the whistle being blown as the train slowly pulled away from the platform, gaining speed as it exited the station, speeded along the tracks. I felt exhausted at that moment, physically drained by the night of drinking and the dash to the carriage. I loosened my tie, wiped the sweat off my brow, and tried my best to keep my eyes open. I didn't want to fall asleep because then I'd surely miss my stop. But try as I might, I simply couldn't fight the overwhelming urge, and slowly but surely I lost the battle.
I said something about like
My eyes closing as I drifted off into
on a different way. Sounds like a guy.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses speech
Do we want
technology
that
to
voice? Do we want this way?
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses text at web page. Works
That
on
was
a
my
variety
favorite.
of
What was
websites,
that, 2?
including
What's
sites
3?
Read Aloud is a Chrome and
No,
Firefox
how about
extension
4?
that uses.
Like 2.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses.
We're staying with 2.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that Haulin estimated
Okay, that works.
reading time 38.
So here's my plan right now. I mean, I'm going to do a spooky Reddit story for Creepypasta. This one's called The Shadowlands Express. Estimated read time 38 minutes. And I'm going to be driving my truck, and if you're on the Purple app, you can do !Bergie. And we're also going to have the fish. So if you're on the Purple app, !Fish. And yeah, there we go. Let's just sit in and get cozy. Enjoy the little story.
trains. I can't say why I was chosen to ride the shuttle. Quietly during them. Perhaps all will be forced to face. In the end, I can't say for sure. But clearly the odds that I was thrust into was not of my choosing.
Oh,
I
Scar,
wouldn't
over
have
you're
boarded
going.
the
You went over to
train
purple.
if I'd known the horrors which lay before me.
Well, welcome over here. Thank you for the follow on the purple app. I appreciate it. Scarby live, Scarby live, Scarb live, Scarb live, Scar 5. Okay. This is Scar. Do I call you Scarb? Scar. Scar blue. Okay. Good.
But despite the terror I've lived through and the people I've lost, I strangely feel like I'm a better
Scar.
man because of
Scar
it.
blue.
But
Okay.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Scar. Sounds good. Sounds
There's
good.
not much I can tell you about myself. I'm not here to recount my life story. Never thought with a bad
I don't
person,
know if I'm
but I've
feeling
done
this voice
bad things.
anymore. Let's turn it down for us. Where is it? Browsers, turn it for me. Turn it on for you. Keep it down low. If we play...
Which resulted in people getting hurt. I've worked in the corporate
Okay, so then now it's like
world all
talking.
my life and never had a problem with
That's better for me.
over to advance my career.
Okay, cool.
My company has a culture of working hard, playing hard, and I was one of the greatest proponents of this hedonistic lifestyle.
I don't know if you guys can hear the story or not.
The Express, I have been out on the town partying and drinking hard before making a mad
Not
dash.
very dynamic of a voice.
Honestly, I remember.
Hey David, thank you for joining the channel. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for scrolling by.
I vaguely recall running through an abandoned
David, how are you
station
today?
buying a paper ticket from a dead-eyed attendant.
Thank you for showing some interest over here in this.
Inside the carriage mere seconds
We need
before the
to...
door slammed shut. I was panting and sweating by the time I entered the nondescript train carriage, but I felt satisfied
Hey
because I made it
yo,
just in
what's
the
up?
nick of time.
How you doing?
I remember
Welcome in.
smiling as I glanced down upon the cushioned seat at an empty
Turn this
beach
down a little
where
bit.
the whistle being blown as the train slowly pulled away from the station and proceeded along the tracks. I felt exhausted at that moment, physically drained by the night of drinking and the dash to the carriage. I loosened my tie, wiped the
Okay,
sweat
so
off
how are
my
the
brow,
sound
and
levels,
tried
everybody?
to keep my eyes open.
How are the
I
sound levels?
didn't want to fall asleep because then I'd surely miss my stop. But try as I might, I simply
Just
couldn't
now
quite
returned from
get
church.
over the urge, and slowly,
Where are you
slowly
from?
I lost the battle. My
What
eyes
time is it
closed,
for you?
I drifted off into a deep slumber.
You're just returning from church
I
now.
don't know how long I was out for.
Oh, okay, so Sunday.
Minutes or hours.
It's now Sunday here, but it
My
just
sleep
became
was
Sunday.
long enough to allow the sinister powers to work their dark magic. I do remember what I dreamt during that.
If you guys get annoyed with me, I will mute myself. So just let me know and tell me to shut up.
I saw my
I'll
ex
mute
in a
myself.
dark place beyond my reach and suffering alone.
It's Sunday morning in India. Okay, yeah. You're like what? What is India? Like 8 hours ahead of me? I know you're way ahead of me. So that means what time morning?
I desperately tried to escape my rolling metal prison.
It just became Sunday for me.
No availed, and I was trapped inside alone and afraid. I was awake in an instant, gasping for air as I shot up from my seat.
We're going to the most northern
somewhat relieved to find
north
myself inside the train carriage and had simply suffered.
10:30. Ooh, you're 10.5 hours ahead of me.
My eyes to the harsh
That's
street
cool.
lights, noting how the brightness inside the
Very
carriage
cool.
compared to the darkness outside the carriage windows.
Mhm.
The train was rolling past city streets, but not a light could be seen, not on the roads or any of the buildings. This struck me as odd, but I didn't dwell on it in that moment.
I want to get a steering wheel.
Off the seat and stumbled
Steering wheel would be
down the
awesome.
approach of a conductor.
That'd be really
My
cool
fear
if I had a
as to
steering
what
wheel.
was that I'd miss my stop and would end up
Yes, you are from the future. How does the future look?
getting home. That would have been
Is it hopeful? Is it good?
as I took those first cautious
Because, you
steps
know,
down the
we all
cobbled
want to know
path,
what the
I
future's
felt
like.
something wasn't right. Call it the sixth sense or a primal fear of terror's long
So right now we're going to the most northern west point in the United States in the trucking game.
I was alone in the carriage. This was disconcerting, but not necessarily
Why?
surprising.
I don't know, because...
Late night train. The interior was unremarkable, quite
Fuck.
ordinary in fact. The blue upholstered soft chairs were set around plastic tables.
Oh, that was
with
horrible. I
speakers
was
and
okay.
CCTV
Let's get
cameras
off and
visible
let's
in the ceiling above
go
me.
get our truck fixed, because that was horrible of me.
Pumped the engine my
Let's
view,
fix this
the
shit.
vehicle sped ever onwards.
Now it's still boring.
We were heading
Future's
like
boring.
nothing
I hear you.
It was only then that I looked out the carriage.
That is quite alright. You know, it is what you make it. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Or, you know, makes the rest of your Sunday awesome, important, and full of energy, all that stuff. I say that and I'm horrible at it, so I don't know why I even say that.
I couldn't see any cars or vehicles either.
Here's me wishing you the
In fact,
best.
there were no signs of people on the outside.
Okay,
It
Google.
seemed like we were traveling
Tbone
through an
purple.
abandoned city devoid of life.
Oh, wow, that's weird. Someone near you is also streaming? Wait, what do you mean?
But as I stood in
You
the
mean
aisle and looked,
that sound that I just paused? So I'm trying to be not too super boring. So I was trying a new thing. I was trying to get, like, we're reading a creepypasta Reddit thing. I'm playing that in the background. Is it too loud? I wonder. Because, like, when people are here, I can talk, but when nobody's here, I'm just kind of playing it in the background so people can chill and enjoy the creepypasta Reddit story. Magic. Because Sandra's awesome. Not my other one. Well, I don't think my other one. My other one's streaming, as you can tell. It's okay. It happens. I let people ghost. Ghost away. It's okay. Okay, so yeah. So if the sound is too loud, if it's too okay, I don't like this. Okay, Google. Dreambone blue. That's fine. Ooh, the color correction. Yeah. I don't mind my lurkers, you know? Lurk away. If you want to lurk, go ahead and lurk. Except I like to say, if you're gonna lurk, go over to the purple app because I actually get something from it. Yeah, that's this. That's okay, so if you look on my stream, over here, you see a little Reddit picture or a little creepypasta picture. That's what it's reading by that person. No, I don't think you guys can see it on the upright. No, not on this, not on the vertical, but it's on the horizontal. I think you get the horizontal. But yeah, that's the one we're reading. It's called that. So yeah. Kind of just like playing in the background.
uneasy as the scenes rolling by change for the worse.
Okay, resume.
Whereas before I saw tidy streets and
we need to go resume, and we're going to go over here.
And crumbling structures, the decaying back the land. I was left gobsmacked, my jaw dropping and blood freezing as I observed an ever deteriorating scene. I knew this city had its run-down areas, but nothing like this. I didn't understand what I was seeing or know where I was, and this uncertainty.
I can only half understand what he's saying too.
I felt so alone in that moment, like I'd been ripped out of the world and dropped somewhere dark, twisted, and bizarre, somewhere I didn't belong. Breaking myself from a fear-induced paralysis, I turned away.
You know, it'd be good. We can hit Madmore. Madmore has a really good voice. If anybody has heard of Madmore, he has like a really nice voice. He reads some stories too. I don't forget what his channels are, but he definitely reads some.
But unfortunately,
he's just such a nice soothing voice. Hello, Bambino. Welcome in.
On board the fabled Shadowlands Express.
How are you today?
Anna was the first person I stumbled across.
Good. I'm doing great.
By accident or design, but
David, welcome back.
Along from me, and I stumbled into her as soon as I entered through the connecting door.
Sounds good.
Anna was a woman in her early 30s.
Appreciate you coming by, David.
And I couldn't help but
you're always welcome.
Despite the precarious circumstances.
And feel free to give me pointers on how to make the Trovo stream better. Because this is only like my third day on Trovo. What?
I noted how her mascara had run like she's been crying, and her deep brown eyes were filled with passion and
yes.
fear as she jumped up from her seat and glared at me with suspicion. Who the hell are you? she demanded, whilst backing up defensively.
Cool.
My eyes widened as I tried to understand why she was acting so hostile, but then I thought about it, realizing she was scared and had no idea who I was, and so I held my hands up defensively,
United States of America.
as possible, whilst replying, "Take it easy,
Did I miss it?
My name's Simon. I'm just a passenger like you." Fell asleep on my way home. Now I'm trying to figure out what's going on. The apprehension slowly faded from Anna's brow,
Feeling like a villain.
her shoulders relaxed as she breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, I believe you," Anna replied, slowly speaking in the aisle as the train sped on past an increasingly bleak landscape. "My name's Anna," she confirmed. "I guess I'm in the same boat as you. Caught the last train home, fell asleep, and woke up alone in this carriage." She paused, looking fearfully out the window towards the ruined city shrouded
Oh, will
by
I
darkness.
fit? I
I
fit.
saw all
Nice.
this outside and thought I must be losing my mind.
I need to go
even
over
now,
here.
Spiked my drink back at the bar. "But you see it too, don't you, Simon?" She looked at me.
Me playing games and getting people to fall asleep.
I glanced out the carriage.
Maybe that's my new calling. To start having AI read Reddit stories while I play this game.
Vestiges of civilization were melting away in front of our eyes.
Yeah,
I
that's the
could no
point.
longer deny or attempt to rationalize away this terrifying sight.
If you'd
because
like,
Anna
I can
was
turn it off.
experiencing it too. "I see it," I finally
Mhm.
confirmed, nodding my head
Wait.
solemnly as I continued to stare into the abyss.
Oh yes.
Anna must have decided to trust
Where
me.
is the-
She walked down the
where's the
carriage
fix?
aisle and stood beside me, placing her soft hand on my
Oh,
shoulder.
okay.
Her touch brought me some small comfort in this chilling
I'm
scenario.
tapping too,
I
kinda,
glanced
sorta,
slowly
yes.
into her expressive brown eyes and watching her soft lips as she spoke. "Simon, do you know where we are?" she asked nervously. I don't think Anna held out much hope, and I was destined to disappoint her. "No," I answered solemnly, "I'm afraid I have no clue."
We need to repair
Anna
what we
broke eye
fixed,
contact,
what we
removing her
broke.
hand as she nodded.
Oh, that was horrible.
Find someone who knows what's going on, she said with a newfound determination. "Let's search the other carriages, find a conductor who can help, or failing that, get to the driver's car and make him stop the train." "Yes, okay then," I said in agreement, following.
Yeah, let's go back onto our trip
towards the door
to the most northern western point in this map on this game.
Train staff during our search, but we did
Let's do
find
this.
another 4 passengers, all of whom were in the same state of confusion and anxiety.
I mean, I'm still trying to find my calling. Maybe my calling is putting people to sleep.
Who was on edge from the moment we met him, ranting, raving, and threatening whoever had put us in this unfortunate situation. Next, we stumbled upon Zoe, a blonde-haired woman with fake nails and eyelashes, her face caked in makeup, and her toned body clad in designer clothes. Zoe,
Yeah, that happens. That
She
happens.
was above the rest of us. Jason was a better prospect, however, the tall and muscular man with short hair, firm eyes, and a steady smile.
I mean, I don't think I'll do sleeping streams because I'll be awake. I'll stay awake, and once I'm done, I'll turn it off once I get sleepy. But
found Eamon the plump.
while I'm here and awake, people are free to come by and play me in the background or whatever is being played in the back.
This was all just a bit of bad luck. Personality-wise and in appearance, the 6 of us couldn't have been more different, but we were all thrust
Well, I am right now. Plunder guy is on. People in Slice on purple, red, green, and Trovo. And then, as I said, Plunder guy on TikTok and this on TikTok.
Surprisingly, not one of us had
So I kind of am in multiple places.
We walked the train carriages from end to end, trying to find something, anything which could help. The
Because
emergency
look, let me
lever
show
was no
you.
use. We pulled it, but the train kept speeding on.
Pause. Got the purple app. Ooh, we didn't start chaos. Start integration. And then we need to start this. Boner the first. Boner the first. By Close. Start integration. So now as things happen. Okay, cool. Now the integration. Okay, so we have purple here for you guys. We have green here, and then we have red here. Red is going on as well. Okay, and then we have, this is like a way to do plunge. And then we have Rovo. Then we have Trovo. Yeah. We got all of them going at one time. And then we have, did we restart? Yeah, we have. For the, hold on. This is the dashboard for Plunder Boy, Plunder Guy. I keep forgetting, is it Plunder Boy or Plunder Guy? I don't remember what I named him. Okay, back to this.
Next, Danny's got the idea.
Move you guys back. What we're doing. Right. Back to the thing. Oh, corns. Killer corn.
Window ready to smash the safety glass, even though we told him it was pointless, as the train was still travelling at considerable
EY4M714PBDE. I4M.
Startled by a disembodied voice calling out to us through the carrier speakers.
That's cool. Welcome in. Welcome in. Feel free to fall asleep on me if you want. Lurkers are welcome. But if you're not lurking and you're not, like, even if you're awake, taps are much appreciated. Taps and, you know, heart means are nice too, but, you know, it's all up to you guys. But feel free to lurk, feel free to fall asleep. There's an AI voice in the background while I do some deliveries. And as a reminder, over on the Purple app, you can do !Burgie and force me to make you a hamburger, and or also !Fish will pop up and you can get another fish and add to the leaderboard. Get your name on the leaderboard. Sometimes at the end of the month I'll pick the top person in there and I'll give them like bits or something.
Who the hell are you?
But I haven't really set that in stone yet. It's still kind of experiment. But feel free to !Fish. Go fishing on my channel, the Purple.
As the speaker wasn't a two-way radio, and so surely he couldn't hear us. But once again, I was surprised because the disembodied voice did answer.
Let's carry on and go to the furthest northwest point in this game on the United States.
And where am I, you ask? I'm right here where
or should I say furthest west north, because the north is a different point. We'll go there next.
Home and always will be.
Excuse me.
His reply was cryptic and body chilling. I was left speechless whilst trying to understand the meaning behind the conductor's words, but so he talked back through clenched teeth. There is no conductor on board.
Hill just went live.
Snarled, we've searched every carriage end to end. The conductor responded with a dry chuckle. I assure you, madam, that I'm here. You may not be able to see my
enjoy your time,
but I can see and hear everything that occurs on board. A cold chill went up my spine upon hearing those words. I think Zoe had a similar feeling as her eyes widened in shock before she looked down at her expensive heeled shoes. Jason was next to speak out. I noticed how he'd picked up the safety hammer which Denny's dropped, and when Jason spoke his voice sounded calm and composed. Why have you brought us here? And what do you want from us? Jason,
we still got 121 miles to get to that west spot.
Feared hearing the answer, but the conductor once again used cryptic language which
Hello?
was open to interpretation. Good
Hi.
Brought you here. You all boarded this
good,
train.
Good morning, night. Good time zone. How are you?
This wasn't a conventional service. But let me say this.
Nice. I had some mini
Jason interjected.
Oh my god, why can't I think of that name? The Polish dumplings? What are those called?
Right, of course, but
Pierogies, pierogies.
That simple. There seemed
I had like, they were like a bacon and cheese. Grilled chicken? Ooh.
Very understandable.
And what else? Anything with the grilled chicken?
My power to bring each of you home right this instant. But alas, this is not possible. I can't guarantee the outcome of this journey, but I can promise two things. Firstly, none of you will be physically harmed on board my train. In these carriages you are safe. Secondly, there is a path home for
Where are you from?
every one of you, but the journey will be long and arduous, and all passengers will be tested.
Excuse me?
He let that statement hang in the air as the six of us shared a worried look. The fear inside that tight train carriage was palpable, and even Jason seemed uneasy. None of us really understood what was happening, but we all sensed a great danger. The disembodied conductor was the only one with any answers, but he wasn't willing to provide them, at least.
United States, I believe.
Instead, he signed off for the night.
We're all in the United States, except for you, Gambino, I believe.
The conductor suggested we have a long way to go and many challenges to face.
Okay, Candy stays in the UK. There.
Carriages, but please do not attempt to exit the train.
Oh, and Kashi. Okay, we got a couple people that are not.
And may result in
The
injury
USA.
or even death. I would also advise you not to look out the windows for prolonged periods. You will likely be disturbed by what you
Arkansas.
see out there. But of course, this
Arkansas.
is all. I think that's all for now. I will speak with you again tomorrow and provide details.
Hello, Kashi. How are you, Kashi?
Good night.
How's the baby?
With that,
How is the
speakers
baby,
went silent, and
Kashi?
the conductor would not answer, no matter how many times we shouted and screamed in an attempt to get his attention. Eventually, we settled down sitting together in the middle carriage as we tried to come to terms with our insane situation. We talked for some time, exchanging outlandish theories on what this might be. The most persuasive argument was that we'd been placed inside some kind of twisted experiment and perhaps hallucinating due to psychedelic drug or gas. This seemed unlikely, but just about plausible. Other possibilities discussed included alien abduction and purgatory. I found that last option particularly chilling. Were we all dead? I did. Think so.
Hey.
I still felt alive and had.
Okay, we still haven't gotten to that point that we were going to. We're not even close yet. We're not even doing a job right now, so all we're doing is wasting money.
Between the six of us, which
Wasting gas.
water from the tap. Except Zoe refused to share her bottled and
I need to find a
insisted
recruitment
on
aid.
drinking straight
Can I do that from here?
There was no food on board the train, however, and this would become a problem the longer our journey dragged on. The conductor had told us not to look out the carriage windows, good advice.
Driver manager?
As the night went on, the ruined city was replaced by a dark
Yes.
tall trees on either side of the tracks.
Yes.
This
Yes.
area went on for mile after mile, and the forest wasn't empty. Every now and then we caught glimpses of dark shadows moving between the trees, large and unidentified creatures shaken from their slumber by the passing train. This was disconcerting, but worse still were the red
Fried pecan pie.
eyes burning in the darkness and glaring menacingly at our carriages, watching us until we sped out of sight.
Let's hire a driver, guys. What kind of driver should we hire?
I tried to avoid looking.
We have Dave N. Driver's rating is 1.7.
Gaze was often drawn
JC,
to the black abyss.
1.7. Those are all
It was
1.7.
Hannah who made the discovery which cast some light on our situation. She examined the ticket she'd bought at the station.
0.8, 1.7. We're all like 1 point. Oh, here's point.
As it turned out, we all had a proverb or other communication written on the rear of our paper tickets, all unique and apparently personalized.
Who's not a part?
We did not share our message.
Okay, well let's go by
At least not
how
on
I
our
would
first night.
how I would do them.
But I believe we were all shaken after reading those written words, perhaps even
Alright.
more so than the terrors we witnessed outside the windows.
Have I ever
I
what
can only
universe?
speak for my own proverb, which reads, "A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies."
What
will
universe?
I struggle to control my emotions as I read those words again.
Oh, okay, like with the gems and stuff. So I have seen bits and pieces, but I've never seen like whole episodes. But I've seen little bits and pieces, like like red shorts and stuff. Yeah, it's really cute, really awesome. Okay, so which driver should we hire? I don't know if we want to do any of these. Let's hire Dirty. Hire driver. Select garage. Garage. I have this San Jose. Wait, no, I have one in. I thought I had one in San Francisco. This one is Wichita. Oh, did I not? Or did it not register? Wait, this one? There it is, San Francisco. Okay, cool. Alright. And then pick a target slot. Okay. Driver direction, Mr. Worked automatically reset. Add with it. Providing that they have a truck to drive. Okay, so can I buy a truck? Use trucks? Let's see. What kind do we want? Oops, wrong button. We have a Kenworth, Volvo. Well, let's see price wise. We have 300,000, 324,000. We get plenty. Kenworth, star. 37,000. Wait, which one has 11? I see 11. I see 11. I see 6. The 6 is first one, which is like the cheapest. We'll get the cheapest one for the person. Purchase that. Okay, we got target slots. So now, online truck purchase. Thank you for your purchase. We will deliver your newly bought truck to your garage in San Francisco immediately. Please note that all trucks bought here have regular insurance paid. Okay, cool. So now we got a truck, we got a driver, and we're going to be making money without doing anything. Okay, so if we go to company, truck driver manager. Relocate, show log. So what is it? Profit per distance? No, okay, base wages. Resting? Okay, so you're gonna take jobs, or how does this work? How this garage manor, you're a small one, daily profit not a improvement trucks used, trailer. No, truck manager, driver manager. Okay, whatever. Let's continue with what we're doing. We have another truck, and they're in the San Francisco garage. And yeah. Oh, I turned off the AI storage.
Couldn't say for sure just yet, but I had an idea of why I was here. Part 4 of the platform. None of us slept much that night. I did finally drop off due to sheer exhaustion, only to be plagued by dark and vivid nightmares. Awaking with a jolt, I found my companion still asleep, with the exception of me, who was looking out the window with an intense curiosity.
Illinois.
I quickly noted that it was now morning, with the rising sun shining through the carriage window. I was relieved at first, as part of me had feared the morning would never come. But I felt less certain once I realized we were still traveling through a dense forest of seemingly endless trees with no apparent signs of civilization. It's been like this since dawn, Eamon explained in almost wonderment without turning away from the window. No towns or villages, no people, no other trains or vehicles. Just an endless track with trees on either side of us. He paused briefly to let those words and their terrifying implications sink in. By my reckoning, we've been travelling for between 8 to 9 hours at a constant speed of 50 to 55 miles per hour. We should have reached the coast hours ago, but I guess the geography on this world is different than on ours. I felt a sickness rising from the pit of my stomach, my eyes widening as I stared at Eamon in disbelief before turning towards the glass and staring out into the abyss. The vast forest wasn't quite as intimidating during the daylight hours. Nevertheless, there was an eerie quality to those towering trees, the surreal and almost mythical feeling that awoke something primal inside of me. As crazy as it sounded, I believe Eamon was right. We weren't in the home counters anymore. In fact, the train seemed to have left our dimension, bringing us to another world with its own rules and unique dangers. Thankfully, we did eventually reach the end of the forest later that morning, although our situation did not improve. The dense woods were replaced by mile after mile of rolling green hills, desolate, wind-swept, and seemingly empty moors set under grim grey skies. We didn't pass through any settlements during that long first day. The most we saw was the occasional stone cottage set upon an isolated hillside. Most appeared abandoned, but occasionally we spotted figures standing behind windows or in doorways, dead-eyed farmers and their families dressed in rags and observing our train as it sped past, and all stood sullen and silent like they were watching a funeral procession. Every 15 miles or so we passed a platform. Our train never stopped or even slowed down, and there didn't seem to be any point in these platforms existing, as they were merely elevated walkways with nothing of note anywhere near them. The first couple of platforms we flew past were emptied, but the solitary figure was standing on the third, an elderly woman with disheveled white hair, wrinkled skin, and wearing a blood-red dress. I remember the cold chill I experienced when I first saw her, the deep terror which I couldn't fully explain. We all watched her in silence through the carriage windows, noting the twisted smile on her lips as she followed our progress along the tracks, lifting her arm to wave at us in an act of horrifying mockery. We called this woman the Hag, and we must have seen her
Okay, what do you want?
at least a dozen times during our long journey.
We just want a burger done twice.
Platform and watched our train roll by. Sometimes she stood in a silent vigil, other times she smiled and waved. But the worst occasions were when the hag reacted with hostility to our presence, running along the platform with pure hatred in her eyes while screaming obscenities which we could not hear. I don't know whether it was the same woman every time or a series of doppelgangers. It shouldn't have been physically
twice
for an elderly woman to travel hundreds of miles in mere hours, but the recognized laws of physics didn't seem to apply in this world. The hag stopped appearing as we approached sundown, only to be replaced by an even more sinister figure. As the light faded, we were confronted by a hooded man who stood upon the passing platforms, a figure dressed from head to toe in dark robes with his face covered. We called this chilling entity the Harbinger, although I feared he might represent something even darker. We never saw his face because it was covered by his hood. Still, we sensed the Harbinger was closely observing our
do I have to do
progress
this?
through his realm. And he wasn't alone. The Harbinger was always accompanied by a huge white dog, more like a wolf in actual-faced, which he kept on a tight leash. While the Harbinger always remained still and silent, his mutt barked manically at the train, struggling against the chain, her eyes burning with hatred and hunger, and with a maw filled with raised sharp fangs. That day was filled with terror and paranoia as my fellow passengers and I were pushed close to breaking point. I don't recall all the conversations we had in between those terrifying interludes. We tried to make plans but could find no solutions.
There we go. You liked it. Good. Zach Berry wanted with such beautiful toothpick, I can forgive him.
And wanted to get back
Okay,
to
cool.
although someone more willing to share personal details than others. I saw the best and worst of my companions in those long hours. Jason revealed he was a former soldier and he continued to try and take charge in the case, although in a practical sense he was effectively powerless. Dennis was continually on edge and prone to angry outbursts, which made him increasingly unpopular within our small group. Zoe wasn't much better, spoilt and entitled. She kept insisting that she shouldn't be here, as if any of us had a choice. By contrast, Eamon barely spoke at all, instead silently staring out the window like he was mesmerized by the bizarre sights beyond the carriage. I began to think that Anna and I were the only sane people on board, and we continued to bond and become closer despite the extreme stress of our situation. We made several attempts to gain the conductor's attention throughout the day, frequently shouting into the speakers, but to no avail. The conductor ignored us throughout the day, only speaking to us again after dusk when he communicated the instructions for our first test. "Good evening, passengers," the conductor suddenly exclaimed, his chilling voice booming through the PA system.
What is this?
We all jumped up,
Is this a
startled by
greenhouse?
the sudden intrusion. "Where the hell have you been?" Dennis snarled angrily, but the conductor simply ignored him, continuing in what seemed to be a pre-prepared script. "We will soon be arriving at our first stop. Your instructions are simple but must be followed to the letter. All passengers must leave the carriage and step onto the platform. Once you disembark, you will find provisions waiting for you. Feel free to stock up on food and drink. When you have done so, you must stay on the platform and await further instructions. Do not leave the platform under any circumstances. I hope this is clear, and I look forward to welcoming you back on the carriage once this business is settled. Good luck." That was it, the message in
Oh yeah, it's the next day,
and the
isn't it?
conductor wouldn't answer
Everybody
our
needs to do their
phone
homework,
calls
as
for further
Auntie would say.
information. We wondered whether this
Do your
was a
homework,
trick.
everybody.
Sure enough, our train did begin to slow before finally coming to a halt beside a dimly lit platform. The carriage doors shot open, but none of us moved an inch. Fear entered my companion's eyes as the cold air from the outside hit us. In a sense, this was what we all wanted. The train had finally stopped after a non-stop journey over hundreds of miles, and the carriage doors were open, but still none of us were in a hurry to disembark, not given the horrors we'd witnessed outside the train's windows. The conductor had given us clear and simple instructions, but how could we trust him? Still, there was an added incentive to step onto the platform. At the far end of the elevated walkway, we could see 2 vending machines stocked with crisped chocolates, processed foods, soft drinks, and bottled water. We had water on the train, but no food, and hunger was starting to hit home. We debated for some time over whether to disembark.
We're almost to the tipping point over here.
As Jason put it, this conductor or whoever is running this thing, they hold all the cards. We need to follow their rules, at least for the time being. But sooner or later they'll slip.
There is a mechanic up ahead. I gotta do that because I got 1%.
Jason was the first to step
What are you
off
doing,
the train,
dude?
closely followed by Dennis and then the rest of us. It was a cold night, and the chill hit us after the relative comfort of the carriage. I also picked up on a foul smell in the air, the stench which seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite place.
Did you have
But
another
our
one?
prime
Yeah.
focus was on reaching the vending machines. We didn't need to insert money and could take as much food as we wanted. Once we tasted the produce and realized it wasn't poisoned, we filled our bags with supplies, stocking up on as much as we could carry, because there was no way of telling how long we'd be trapped on board the phantom train. With this task completed, we stood and waited wearily, glancing towards the dark trees beyond the lit-up platform as we waited for further instructions. "Well now," I asked, addressing my question to Jason.
Hi, Sammy.
"We wait for orders, just like he told us," was his stern answer. "To hell with that."
Yeah.
This was Denny's, and his blood was up again, his eyes filled with something close to madness. "You need to calm down, mate," Jason said further,
time for me.
looking Denny square in the eye.
I met you yet. How you doing, Sammy? Welcome.
"I won't calm down. No fucking way." Denny screamed, "You people are all nuts. You want to let that voice tell you what to do." "Not me, mate. I'm
Where you
stepping
been?
off and going home."
It's been a long time.
"No, Denny's," Anna cried in distress. "We don't know what's
Where are you
out
from,
there."
Sammy?
But Denny simply scoffed dismissively. "I'll
Oh,
take
here
my
you go.
chances.
Okay.
No way I'm getting back on that fucking train."
Well, nice to meet you.
I moved towards
I'm
Dennis,
Tbone.
intending to physically restrain him if necessary. But Jason stopped me
I
from
play
doing
games.
so, placing a firm hand on my shoulder
Yep,
and shaking
Tbone.
his head in
Tbone
the negative.
slice. Whatever you want to call me.
Moments later, and Dennis was at the end of the platform and sprinting into the forest.
I almost ran into the
Didn't
truck
make it
up
far.
there.
We didn't witness our companion's grisly death. Thankfully, it was too dark to
A little
see.
rowdy over there, isn't
We
it?
could hear every
A little lively.
detail as the slaughter played out in the blackness. First came the low animalistic growl, followed by a chilling scream from Dennis as he surely realized he'd made a terrible mistake. A violent rustling came from the bushes, Dennis continuing to scream frantically as the growling beast tore into him with teeth and claws ripping flesh and cracking bones.
Oh no, are you in a bar? Is that Sammy?
Screaming, and all we
No.
could hear was the sound of a body slowly being dragged
Crazy
away.
Sagittarius. Hi, Crazy
Oh my God.
Sagittarius.
Zoe exclaimed with tears of terror rolling down her cheeks.
We at a
The
bar?
moment of shocked
Must be at a
silence
bar.
followed before the speakers attached to the platform's lamps burst
Nice.
alight.
Who is Crazy Sagittarius? How you
First
doing,
classes
Crazy
now
Sagittarius?
concluded.
You haven't met?
Please
Oh, we got
return
it.
to the train without delay.
Welcome.
It was the conductor's voice.
I'm Tbone.
Obeyed, quickly jumping back on board the carriage before the doors shut and the train started to move forward, leaving the cursed platform behind.
You have? Okay,
6
cool.
of us had disembarked and only 5 had got back.
Okay, we meet a lot of people.
Dennis devoured by the beast. We all sat in stunned silence for some time as the train sped ever onward. Eventually, the conductor provided an explanation of sorts. Alas, Dennis is no more. He merely needed to obey the instructions, but instead he tried to run. Perhaps not surprising. In life, Dennis never held down a job and he abandoned his wife and children. Running away was always in his nature. Advertisements. Then why test him? Anna responded angrily. You knew what he'd do, so what's the point? On the contrary, madam, the conductor replied coolly. I had no prior knowledge of what Dennis would do. His actions may have been predictable, but Dennis had free will, as do all of you. You should bear this in mind during the trials to come. None of us had anything to say to that, the 5 of us sitting in wordless and fearful contemplation as our grim odyssey continued.
Wow.
Part 5, the station house. The second day passed by pretty much like the first. Night turned to day and dense forest was once again replaced by rolling hills. We continued.
Are you having fun over there, Sagittarius?
Platform we sped past. The old hag became more aggressive, chasing the train as far as the end of the
saying
platform,
hi.
screaming
How you
blue murder
doing?
with pure and
Alright
adulterated
guys, I didn't
hatred
know
in
my
her
mic was
dark eyes.
live. I'm good.
The harbinger
Just
remained
hanging out,
silent,
playing
although
pool
his
with a few
presence was
folks.
increasingly
Awesome.
sinister, with his eyeless glare burning through us.
Cool.
And then there was
Is it
the
gonna work?
hellhound
It's not
barking
gonna work.
menacingly with a murderous rage. We couldn't help but notice the fresh blood pouring from the canine's fang-filled mouth. After a while we stopped looking out the window entirely, although we found little solace inside the speeding
Wait,
train.
I had a message.
Dennis's death had hit us hard. We now
Oh,
realized
yeah.
how dangerous
Oh,
this
shit.
place truly was. Hope began to fade, and I wondered whether any of us would make it home.
Give everybody a chance. Give them a little bit of love.
In separate carriages
See what
with
happens in
Surprisingly, Jason and
game,
Sue
you
formed a
know.
partnership despite their differences in personality.
Sounds so tired.
I think Zoe wanted a strong man
You're
who
tired.
could protect her, and
Yeah.
perhaps Jason needed someone.
Or maybe
to
that's
protect
just me thinking. Or it's
Anna
not.
and I stayed close, holding each other as
I don't
we
know, this
slept.
is my daytime, almost. I'm usually up
I
for another
don't
like 3 to 5
share
hours.
what we said and did whilst alone together. Some things should remain private. But Anna brought me comfort during those hellish hours, and I
Robin
like to
Hood.
think I returned the favour.
Moose?
And finally there was the
Moose?
enigmatic demon who occupied a carriage by himself,
Moose?
still refusingly engaged
You
with the group.
Moose?
A familiar
Moose
pattern
is on
emerged as the
Thunderbite.
PA system
Thunder
remained
guy?
silent
Thunderboy.
until nightfall, bursting to life after dusk as the conductor communicated the instructions
Was.
for our second test.
Okay.
Good evening, passengers.
Got some
I
likes.
trust you have
Number
had a
one like.
comfortable day's
Only
travel.
one like.
I noticed how the conductor's tone sounded less enthusiastic
That's okay.
and more subdued than it had previously been, like the ordeal was draining for him too. We will shortly be stopping at the station house. Here you will all face your next challenge. You should proceed into the lobby. There you will find 5 doors, one marked for each of you. Inside you will discover the reason why you are here. Facing your past sins is the first step towards redemption. Those of you who pass this test may re-embark for the final leg of our journey. I
Hey,
wish
you do you. Whatever feels
Anna
right for you, you do you, and we'll always like.
As the train began to slow. Do we have to do this? Anna asked nervously. I think so, I answered whilst taking her hand.
Go straight on.
And when the train stopped, we cautiously stepped off onto the platform, joining our companions as the 5
I'm starting to figure out if that's what I want to do with this. I don't know.
Station
I
house
bounce
was
around
really
with stuff.
illuminated
I like to
by
have
the
my own
lamps on the
vibe,
platform.
but
There was a faint light shining within.
I don't think anybody likes to join when I'm playing a
The
game.
slate-tiled room looked Victorian in design and could have been
Those are a great alternative.
although at the same time
But I'm still doing it live. Blunderboy is
no visible signs
got the
of
better.
deterioration or
You see this, what he
decay.
sees, or what everybody sees on Blunderboy, but it's much better over there.
Some kind of dark power over us. I think we all knew we had to step inside. It seemed there was no other choice. Still, I feared what we'd encounter on the other side of those ominous walls. It seemed we all shared the same apprehension, all except for the ever-bizarre Eamon, who stepped forward and marched towards the heavy front door, slowly turning the handle and stepping inside. The rest of us shared a look. Anna shook her head, tears in her eyes, as she made a last-ditch attempt to persuade me not to enter. Perhaps she was right, but in that moment I felt I needed to be strong for us both, so I took her hand and we marched forward towards the open door. Jason and Zoe followed in our tracks, and soon all 5 of us were inside the lobby.
We made our
They jumped
area.
off the front
We're in the
door, slammed
topmost
shut
point,
behind us. Jason ran back,
northwestern
struggling with the handle
point
before turning back to us in frustration.
of
It's locked. He confirmed
the United
slowly.
States in this game.
Somehow I wasn't surprised. With no way to exit, we were forced
But we
to
still
stay
need to go to
our own
Bellingham. Go to
The
the
station
top.
house appeared larger on the inside than it looked on the outside. I couldn't say whether this was an optical illusion or the result of black magic. In any event, I forgot all about everything else when I glanced over to the far side of the lobby and saw
Let's
5
see what-
wooden doors, each marked with a name crudely written in red chalk: Jason, Zoe, Eamon, Annette, and Simon. One doorway for each of us, me included.
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go.
Strangest
But
thing,
that's
because
too
at the
south.
moment none
There
of
were
us
not
said a
more.
word, and not one of us fought
Until
the
another way
natural
south.
urge
That's
to
good.
walk
That's
towards
going
our
kind of
side
where.
doors and face
But no.
whatever lay within. I looked to Anna as we walked side by side, but she did meet my eyes, and perhaps she no longer needed me. My hand
I think the
shook
first
as I
one's
reached her
exactly where I
hand,
want to go.
slowly sliding the door open and stepping
Do it.
inside. I can't
Oops,
say
I didn't mean to
exactly
do that.
what my 4 companions experienced inside their own rooms, although I can hazard a guess based on the dark revelations that were later confessed. All I can describe is my own experience, a descent into my personal hell as my worst moments flashed in front of my eyes. Because what lay behind my door wasn't a room in a conventional sense. Rather, it was a journey into my sordid past, a mirror used to reflect my ugliest side and shine light on my worst sins. The good times came first, reminders of what I'd lost or rather thrown away. I relived the first date I had with Kate, as vivid and real as when I first experienced
I
it
thought
all
I
those years
did
ago.
this.
More images flashed in front of my eyes, reigniting emotions I'd long since tried to bury. The first time we made love, our wedding day, how beautiful she'd looked whilst walking down the aisle in her stunning white dress. But then came the bad times, the complacency I had for my marriage even in the early days, as I worked late every night and left my Kate home alone. And next was the affair, the first illicit kiss with Cassandra at the office party, the night we spent together whilst away at that conference. It was gut-wrenching to see my moments of weakness played out again, except it was worse this time because I could see how it was for Kate, how much it hurt her. When she found out about my betrayal, her heart broke into 2. Kate broke down after the divorce, and I saw it all inside that hellish room: the excessive drinking, the suicide attempt, and finally the forced stay in a psychiatric hospital. Back in the real world, I didn't go to see her, not even once. But now I saw it all: Kate sitting alone in a locked room, heavily medicated, her skin paled and her eyes devoid of passion or hope. She was a shell of her former self, and all because of what I'd done.
Alright.
I felt physically sick by the time it was over, stumbling out of the room and back into the lobby. Judging by the shaken looks on the faces of my companions, I guessed we'd all had to face our personal demons in those damn rooms. But there was one person missing. Zoe hadn't exited her room and her door was still shut. As if on cue, we heard a high-pitched scream emanating from the other side of the door as Zoe desperately cried out for help. Jason
I think
jumped
I made the
up and
game
slammed
glitch a little
his
bit.
shoulder against the locked door with all his might. Anna and I joined in, and somehow we broke inside. But what we witnessed in that room was horrifying. Set against the far wall was what I can only describe as a portal, a swirling vortex of crimson red burning fiercely and leading to God knows where. A hideous arm extended from the vortex to black appendage with sharp claws which held a tight grip on its victim. And of course the victim was Zoe. The woman was down on the ground, her eyes filled with dread as she screamed for our help. Jason darted forward and reached out for her hand, but it was already too late.
The
He
story's
clawed
getting
down deep into
juicy.
Zoe's exposed leg, pulling her rapidly towards the portal.
Speaking of,
I always remember the final look in the woman's eyes, the sheer and adulterated terror as she was dragged kicking and screaming into hell. It was all over before we could do a thing as Zoe disappeared into the vortex, and the portal promptly vanished into thin air, leaving us staring at a blank wall in an empty room, barely able to comprehend what we'd just witnessed. 5 minutes after the horror, and we were back on the train. What else could we do? I was almost broken by what we'd experienced in that damn station house. I believe my companions felt the same, or at least Jason and Anna did. We sat together in the middle carriage, remaining silent as the train slowly pulled away from the platform before gaining speed. A tense moment passed before the tannoy sounded and the conductor spoke. 5 entered and only 4 passengers returned. A shame, but perhaps not unexpected.
Eesh.
Jason's face screwed up with raw anger as he jumped up off his seat and removed a concealed weapon from his
Oh, that
jacket
was so
pocket.
close.
You fucking bastard. He cried, directing his fury towards the carriage speaker. He sent her to die. Before we could stop him, Jason used the safety hammer to strike the speaker, smashing it to pieces in an act of vandalism born through grief and frustration. But this action proved entirely futile because the invisible conductor could still speak to us, his voice clear and composed as he answered this aggression. Please, sir, I am a tolerant man, but I have my limits.
Why is it not giving me all the
Jason
information?
stood defiant for a moment, but the anger soon faded from his red face and he meekly sat back down whilst returning the hammer to his pocket. Thank you,
I
sir,
think the game
the
glitched a
conductor
little bit.
said, as clearly he could see and hear everything. Your grief for your friend is understandable. But as I've already said, my role is simply to facilitate your journey. I am not responsible for whatever happens beyond the carriage doors. But why, sir? Anna asked emotionally. We all went into the rooms, but the rest of us walked away. Why was she taken? The answer is quite simple. The conductor responded. All of you were confronted by your past sins, and the 4 of you shared genuine guilt, shame, and remorse over your actions. But not Zoe. She married an old and wealthy man she did love, waited until he died so she could claim his fortune. But in the end, she could not acknowledge her wrongdoing, and that's why Zoe failed the test. None of us had a word to say after that. This outcome was madness as far as I was concerned. Sure, Zoe was a gold digger, and she'd done a shitty thing, but was her sin bad enough for her soul to be condemned? And what was the point of this insane odyssey anyway? Did any of us have a chance of making it home? Or would the sadists who ran this dark realm pick us off one by one? The conductor remained silent, and I doubted we'd get the answers we needed from him. But all of us had secrets.
Ooh, what happened?
And I thought now
Oh,
was the time
no.
for those difficult conversations. My throat was dry and my voice trembled.
That's not
I
cool.
forced myself to speak the word. We all had visions in those rooms, visions of our past sins. I began attempting to meet my companion's eyes. I'm not proud of what I relived back there, but I'm willing to tell my sordid tale. I think we all need to know why we're here. Knowledge is power, and sharing our pain might just help us get home. I looked to my companions and noted the initial horror which came over Jason and Anna, but eventually they accepted the wisdom behind my suggestion and reluctantly agreed to share their dirty laundry. Not so with Eamon. He didn't respond at all to my suggestion, continuing to stare out the window as if he hadn't even heard me. Nevertheless, I decided to lead by example, recounting the shameful account of my affair and abandonment of my wife. I closely watched Anna's reaction once I finished my story. She didn't say anything, but I swore I could see the disgust in Anna's
navigation's
eyes.
not
She
working
lost
properly.
respect for me.
Not giving me the
My female companion had her own dark secret to reveal. I was driving home from work on a Thursday night. She began, her voice monotone and eyes facing downwards. I was tired and distracted, sending a text instead of paying attention to the road. She sighed deeply before continuing as tears returned to her brown eyes. I didn't see the red light and hit the other car head on. I was lucky. My airbag deployed and I walked away from the crash with barely a scratch. The other driver was not so lucky. She was left paralyzed from the waist down and will spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. The judge went easy on me, the suspended sentence and driving ban. I guess I got lucky again.
We're gonna have to
at
take
least
a
until now.
berry. How to say?
She glanced up at me, her eyes red and bloodshot as she forced a nervous smile. I guess Anna wanted some reassurance, but I had nothing to say in that moment, and I broke off eye contact. Jason's account was next, his tough exterior
I
cracking.
might have to take a ferry. Is that what that was?
I was on my second tour in Haulin province. Explained the troubled veteran. We got intelligence that a Taliban bomber was hiding in a local house, and so we executed a dawn raid. I headed to clear a bedroom upstairs. Saw some movement out of the corner of my eye and reacted on instinct, turning and shooting. It was only then that I realized what I'd done. He took a deep breath, mustering up the courage to finish his tragic tale. I killed a kid. A boy maybe 11 or 12 years old. Unarmed and innocent child.
Man,
I'll never
doing?
forget the look in the mother's eyes as she cradled her boy still warm.
How you doing? Where are you from? What's your content?
Anger as she cursed me to hell. The OC made the incident go away.
I said, how you doing? Where are you from? And what is your content?
Charges, but I couldn't go back to combat after that.
Your content here. What do you do on TikTok? Do you make videos? Do you do lives?
It will haunt me to the grave. Jason looked up the carriage
Okay.
mournfully, lost in his trauma and guilt. I wanted to say
Nice.
something, but once again couldn't
I am
find
as well.
words. Instead, I turned my attention to the
Yeah,
air,
it's the wrong way.
needing to slam my fist on the table to get his attention.
Turn left.
Hey mate, I exclaimed whilst meeting Eamon's and focused bloodshot eyes. You need to talk to us. The only way we'll get through this is if we work together.
Get
It was
ready
a
to turn
cliched
right.
line, but true nonetheless. But Eamon was having none of it.
Turn right.
He scoffed in contempt, jumping up from his seat and pushing his way out into the aisle. He began to stomp angrily towards the next carriage. But before doing so, Eamon turned and met my eye, snarling as he delivered a cryptic and ominous message. I know what I've done, and I know what I need to do to set things right. That's all you'll get from me. And with that, Eamon barged out of the carriage, leaving the three of us sitting in mournful silence as our fun train
Coffee
continued to
time.
speed through the darkened hellscape. Part 6: The Dark City. It rained
don't like
heavily
coffee.
all day from dawn to dusk and into the long night.
No,
before we
I
reached
don't
our
like
final
coffee.
destination. The bad weather only added to the misery of our increasingly grim situation. Advertisements. Our morale was broken, and the
I mean, I'm the kind that, like, I'm okay with coffee, but I only like a little bit of coffee in my cream and sugar. That's how I usually have my coffee.
Unable to do so. Why was there suddenly?
So, I don't know what to say about that.
Sure, but my guess was that we were both ashamed. In any event, day 3 was the worst yet.
Iced coffee? Yeah, I'm okay with iced coffee, but as I said, a lower amount of coffee compared to
Again,
everything
I don't
else.
know where she left us. Perhaps her purpose had been fulfilled, or maybe her warnings had fallen on deaf ears. The Harbinger was still there, however, his black robes somehow shielding him from the torrential rain as his soaked dog barked by his side. The dark entity seemed more prominent and intimidating on the third date, and I feared he would.
Where are we gonna go? Are we gonna go on a ferry?
Fate.
We're gonna go on a
The
ferry.
constant rain and the chilling visions would have been bad enough, but the train decided to introduce a terrifying new element to the mix. As usual, the conductor didn't speak with us during the daytime, but others did. Disembodied voices echoed through the carriages, 2 voices, in fact, 1 male and 1 female. They sounded familiar, and soon I made the connection. It was Dennis and Zoe. The 2 lost passengers were calling out to us from whatever hellscape they
We need to
had
stop.
sailed to.
What are you gonna do?
For hours I was forced to listen to my former companions' sporadic screams and pleas for mercy as they were subjected to unseen tortures. But worse still were the periods when Dennis and Zoe were lucid and they spoke fondly of their fellow passengers on the Shadowlands Express. Sometimes they called us out by name, telling us that we'd meet again soon. In the end, we all congregated on the middle carriage as darkness fell, if only because we needed to support each other in the face of these many terrors.
It's okay.
Even Eamon seemed shaken by the
A lot of
voices,
it.
and I believed he may be willing to work with us.
Maria,
I was to
Maria.
hear the conductor's voice coming through the tannoy shortly after dusk. Although predictably, he didn't have good news for us. Good evening, passengers. We will shortly be approaching our final stop.
I just ferried across here.
This train will terminate here. Please ensure that you take all personal possessions with you when you disembark. I thank you all for riding the Shadowlands Express. We all looked at each other in astonishment, hardly believing what we'd just heard. What the hell does he mean? Anna exclaimed in shock. No, this isn't right. I proclaimed, my angry frustration boiling to the surface. You told us that we'd get home if we followed the rules.
Yeah, pretty much
There
it.
was a pause, and I swore I could hear a deep sigh from the other side of the line before the
I'm doing my thing like usual.
That isn't
Hanging out in a
exactly
box,
what I
playing a
said,
game on everything else.
but I owe you an explanation nonetheless. I promised you would be safe on board my train, but our journey ends here. You should make your way to the Nexus station on the other side of the city to catch the connecting servers. Consider this your third and final test. We all glanced out the window, noting how the dark woods were now replaced by bleak concrete buildings illuminated by harsh artificial lights. So that's it then. We're on our own, Anna asked fearfully. I'm afraid so, madam, the conductor replied with some regret evident in his voice. I wish I could do more, but I'm a humble servant and my place is here.
I'm sorry if everybody that I don't pay any attention.
What you've learnt here, watch your backs and follow
Alerts, and if you'd send me a
good luck.
live or something, I usually don't look at my messages, so.
Silent for the last time.
I'm so
The
sorry.
train drove past empty streets and grim buildings before it
Well, I give her the
eventually
TikTok.
arrived at the so-called central station. But instead of a busy terminus one might have expected, we instead saw
What?
only empty, rain-swept platforms devoid of
Confused.
other trains
What
or
happened?
even a single passenger. We came to a slow stop alongside
Started playing
the
music and then
platform,
he
the doors
peaced
swung
out.
open, exposing us to the cold and damp outside.
Whatever.
We all sat perfectly still for a moment, unsure of
It was
what to do
wonderful.
next. As hellish as our journey had been, this train served as a safe haven, at least compared to the horrors beyond its doors. And every time we disembarked, someone had died. We had no idea what dangers lurked out on the streets of this dark city. But whatever lay out there, it was
We were
surely
in
our
Canada for a
destiny,
tiny
and we had
bit.
no choice but to face it. Eamon was the first to step off onto the wet platform, followed by Jason, then Anna, and finally me. I took one last mournful glance at the Shadowlands Express before the doors slammed shut and we proceeded down the walkway. The station interior was clean, well-lit, sterile, and entirely abandoned. We cautiously walked across the tiled floor, observing the empty ticket kiosks and vacant commercial stalls. We all noted the sign hanging over the building exit which reads, "This way to Nexus Station."
It's okay.
The conductor had told us to follow the signs.
A lot of people fall asleep on these.
Train. In that moment, Jason regained some of his former strength as he attempted to take charge of the situation. Okay guys, we don't know what's outside those doors, but we must be prepared to defend ourselves. We need to search the station and find anything we can use as weapons. Anna and I looked at each other in concern, but Eamon leapt into action, searching an empty food stall and soon unveiling a sharp kitchen knife. Good man, Jason said with a nod before turning towards Anna and I now
Yep.
repeated. Jason never got a chance to finish his sentence. Eamon moved so fast that we didn't even have time to shout a warning. He charged Jason from behind, brutally stabbing him in the back without a second's hesitation. Jason squealed in shocked pain as Eamon pulled the knife out. The ex-soldier swung around, grabbing Eamon by the throat in an attempt to throttle him, but Eamon stabbed Jason again and again in the stomach and chest, spilling his blood on the white tiles. Jason looked to us with shock and pain in his pale face as he collapsed and died on the blood-soaked floor. "What the fuck have you done?" Anna screamed. Eamon looked up with a wild fury in his dark eyes and the blooded knife still in his left hand. "I told you last night." He spat. "I know what I have to do to
Yep,
set
that's
things
what
right.
happens.
I've known from the very start. It says so on my ticket. Say every sin and you will walk free." With that, the killer
That's
stepped
pretty.
over Jason's body and marched towards us with murderous intent.
Pretty.
I could see there was no reasoning with Demon. He'd lost his mind and would kill again without hesitation. And so I did the only thing that I could think of in that moment. I grabbed hold of Anna's hand and we ran together, sprinting out the station exit and onto the rain-swept streets. Anna and I took in little of the dark city as we sprinted down the pavements with the heavy rain falling on our heads and the psychotic
There's Kashi. Hi, Kashi.
pursuit. Still, I suspect there was little we'd wish to see. The city was grim and austere to an almost absurd extent, consisting largely of ugly tower blocks and empty storefronts, with every building constructed in the brutalist style. There were no monuments, parks, or even trees, nothing that would give this anonymous conurbation even a shred of identity. And the city was virtually, but perhaps not entirely, abandoned. There were no pedestrians or vehicles on the streets, but occasionally we spotted the dark silhouettes of anonymous figures standing in upper windows and glaring down upon us. We had no knowledge of the city's geography or even its size, but the signs were clear and constant, and so we were directed towards Nexus Station during our mad dash through puddles and gutters. We dared not stop because Eamon
Oh.
was surely on our tail just waiting for his opportunity to strike.
Well, this is nice.
Return ticket.
Deception pass.
I don't know how long we ran through those dark, rain-swept streets following the signposts with the slim hope of salvation. We might have covered miles in our mad dash, always fearing what lay behind each corner. I had the distinct feeling that Eamon wasn't the only one hunting us. Both Anna and I both experienced elation when we sprinted down a lonely back street and saw the promised train station before us, its entrance clearly marked with a sign reading Nexus. We were so close, but of course salvation wasn't so easy. Anna slipped in a puddle and I leaned over to assist her. We hadn't seen or heard Eamon for some time and hoped we'd lost him in the dark city's maze-like streets, but he was right on our tail, biding his time before launching his attack. I saw him charging through the rain, a crazed look in his eyes as he screamed like a berserker and raised his knife to strike. Anna was still down and vulnerable, and so I had to act. I blocked Eamon's path, hoping I could overpower him and force the knife from his hand, but Eamon collided with my body with a great force, knocking me down onto the wet pavement. He stood over me with the knife in hand, ready to plunge the blade into my chest. I doubt I could stop him, but thankfully Anna intervened. She pushed the attacker back and tried to grab his knife, but instead Eamon slashed her across the stomach. Anna screamed, her eyes filling with shock and pain as her blood fell to the pavement and was washed into the gutter. She was hurt, but had bought me time, and so I pulled myself up and struck out at Eamon, punching him hard in the face. Eamon squealed as he stumbled backwards, blood pouring from his nose. He was hurt, but not down, and now the killer had a reason to be angry. I watched fearfully as Eamon's eyes narrowed and he tightened his grip on the knife's handle. He made to launch another murderous attack, but never got the chance. I saw a blur of movement in the corner of my eye, the white beast tearing across the street in a lightning assault.
Go straight on.
Eamon had no time to react before the hellhound hit him from behind, knocking him to the pavement before biting deep into his exposed neck. Eamon screamed, squirmed and fought, but to no avail as the beast tore his throat out and spilled his blood on the roadside where it was swept into the gutters by the rainwater. I spotted Eamon's discarded knife and reached down to grab it. Then I went to Anna's aid whilst the hound finished off its prey. As I helped the wounded Anna to her feet, I looked past the bloody scene and saw the Harbinger standing at the far end of the street, his black robe somehow dried despite the heavy rain and his piercing, eyeless gaze focused upon us. The Harbinger had sent his killer dog to finish Eamon, but he surely hadn't done so to save us. I knew Anna and I would be next, and so I took my wounded companion's hand and we ran towards the sanctuary of Nexus Station. We made it inside, savouring the shelter from the relentless deluge. The kiosk was unattended, but I noticed 2 tickets sitting on the counter waiting for us. This couldn't be a coincidence, and so Anna and I grasped hold of the paper slips and proceeded inside the station, Anna groaning in pain as I helped her walk forward. What we found were 2 platforms connected by an elevated footbridge. The closest platform already had a train waiting, its engine running and carriage doors open. Salvation was so close, but we heard a man barking just behind us. I glanced over my shoulder as we ran down the platform, seeing the hellhound charging towards us with Eamon's fresh blood dripping from her fangs.
I mean, does it even matter? Like, what does it do? What does that have anything to do with anything?
I made a split-second decision, shoving Anna inside just before the doors automatically
We
closed.
need to have our face detected? I mean, my face is like barely on there.
Blooded hands on the carriage window, but I turned away from her to face my attacker. The hound jumped me, knocking me down to the platform whilst clawing at my chest. The beast went for my throat, but fortunately I still had the knife, which I used to frantically stab the dog in her side. The mutt yelped in pain, ending her attack and retreating down the platform, bleeding as she went. I watched fearfully from the ground, noting how the Harbinger stood at the far end of the platform, always watching but not intervening. His hand retreated behind her, master licking her wounds. I had an opportunity to save myself and was determined to take it, but when I tried to board the carriage, I found the doors
Apparently
were
not.
closed.
Not according to TikTok.
Slowly but surely making its way down the platform. I looked through the carriage window and saw Anna on the other side, bleeding and crying as she called out my name. We were so close and yet couldn't reach each other. My heart was broken in that moment, but at least Anna was safe. I lost her gaze as the train pulled away, and then I was left alone on the platform with my assailants. I expected a second and probably fatal attack. but to my surprise the Harbinger stood still with the wounded and now docile hound by his side. They didn't attack, but the Harbinger and his dog still blocked the platform.
But of course.
The train was gone, and so there was only one place I could go across the footbridge and over to the far platform. And so I made my way onto the bridge, clutching the claw wounds on my chest as I struggled with every step. But I fought through the pain and got to the far side, glancing wearily back to the first platform where the Harbinger still stood. I had nowhere left to go, but salvation came when I'd all but given up hope as I looked up the tracks and saw the bright headlights of the second train approaching from the opposite direction, announcing its arrival with a blaring horn. I stood on the dark platform, awestruck as the empty train came to a stop in front of me before its doors swung open. I only hesitated for a second before stepping on board. I had no idea where the train was headed or what it had in store for me, but I reckoned anywhere was better than here. And so I embarked, nervously sitting at a table and looking back at the Harbinger, feeling his burning glare upon me as he watched me leave his hellish realm. Because a moment later the train pulled away from the station and sped down the tracks. I've been travelling for a few hours now, and the signs are good. We left the bleak, dark city behind long ago before hurtling through many miles of forest. Now I can see an actual city with cars, people, and all the signs of bustling civilization which I've missed so much over the last 3 days. I'm hurt and almost broken,
I'm a
but
professional
I'm
over 23.
There are so many unanswered questions rattling around my head. Why was I chosen to ride? And more importantly, why had I survived when others hadn't? What was the Shadowlands Express? Who controlled it? And for what purpose? But one question takes prominence over all others. Where is Anna? Did her train take her home, or has she been transported somewhere else to another hell beyond? I don't have the answers, not yet. But I won't rest until I'm reunited with Anna, and I know she's safe. Credit Mark Lynch. Facebook.
Anything to Washington?
3/10 from 79 votes. Copyright statement, unless explicitly stated, all stories published on creepypasta.com are the property of and under copyright to their respective authors and may not be narrated or performed under any circumstance.
Awesome. That one. One more.
Ready to roll. Time to get the job done.
Bedtime. Estimated reading time 57 minutes. Part 1, the beginning. Bedtime is supposed to be a happy event for a tired child. For me, it was terrifying. While some children might complain about being put to bed before they have finished watching a film or playing their favorite video game, when I was a child, nighttime was something to truly fear. Somewhere in the back of my mind it still is.
When possible, make a U-turn.
Advertisements. As someone who is trained in the sciences, I cannot prove that what happened to me was objectively real, but I can swear that what I experienced was genuine horror. A fear which in my life I am glad to say has never been equaled. I will relate it to you all now as best I can, make of it what you will, but I'll be glad to just get it off of my chest. I can't remember exactly when it started, but my apprehension towards falling asleep seemed to correspond with my being moved into a room of my own. I was 8 years old at the time, and until then I had shared a room quite happily with my older brother. As is perfectly understandable for a boy 5 years my senior, my brother eventually wished for a room of his own, and as a result I was given the room at the back of the house. It was a small, narrow, yet oddly elongated room, large enough for a bed and a couple of chests of drawers, but not much else. I couldn't really complain because even at that age I understood that we did not have a large house, and I had no real cause to be disappointed as my family was both loving and caring. It was a happy childhood during the day. A solitary window looked out onto our back garden, nothing out of the ordinary, but even during the day the light which crept into that room seemed almost hesitant.
Get ready to turn
As my
right.
brother was given a new bed, I was given the bunk air beds which we used to share.
Turn
While I
right.
was upset about sleeping on my own, I was excited at the thought of being able to sleep in the top bunk, which seemed far more adventurous to me. From the very first nights I remember a strange feeling of unease creeping slowly from the back of my mind. I lay on the top bunk staring down at my action figures and cars strewn across the green-blue carpet. As imaginary battles and adventures took place between the toys on the floor, I couldn't help but feel that my eyes were being slowly drawn towards the bottom bunks, as if something was moving in the corner of my eye. Something which did not wish to be seen. Advertisements. The bunk was empty, impeccably made, with a dark blue blanket tucked in neatly, partially covering two rather bland white pillows. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was a child, and the noise slipping under my door from my parents' television bathed me in a warm sense of safety and well-being. I fell asleep. When you waken from a deep sleep to something moving or stirring, it can take a few moments for you to truly understand what is happening. The fog of sleep hangs over your eyes and ears even when lucid. Something was moving, there was no doubt about that. At first I wasn't sure what it was. Everything was dark, almost pitch black, but there was enough light creeping in from outside to outline that narrowly suffocating room. Two thoughts appeared in my mind almost simultaneously. The first was that my parents were in bed because the rest of the house lay both in darkness and silence. The second thought turned to the noise, a noise which had obviously woken me. As the last cobwebs of sleep withered from my mind, the noise took on a more familiar form. Sometimes the simplest of sounds can be the most unnerving. The cold wind whistling through a tree outside a neighbour's footsteps uncomfortably close, or in this case the simple sound of bed sheets rustling in the dark. That was it, bed sheets rustling in the dark, as if some disturbed sleeper was attempting to get all too comfortable in the bottom bunk. I lay there in disbelief, thinking that the noise was either my imagination or perhaps just my pet cat finding somewhere comfortable to spend the night. It was then that I noticed
So she's sleepy.
had been as I'd fallen asleep. Perhaps my mum had checked in on me and the cat had sneaked into my room then. Yes, that must have been it. I turned to face the wall, closing my eyes in the vain hope that I could fall back to sleep. As I moved, the rustling noise from underneath me ceased. I thought that I must have disturbed my cat, but quickly I realized that the visitor in the bottom bunk was much less mundane than my pet trying to sleep, and much more sinister. As if alerted to and disgruntled by my presence, the disturbed sleeper began to toss and turn violently, like a child having a tantrum in their bed. I could hear the sheets twist and turn with increasing ferocity. Fear then gripped me, not like the subtle sense of unease I had experienced earlier, but now potent and terrifying. My heart raced as my eyes panicked, scanning the almost impenetrable darkness. I let out a cry. As most young boys do, I instinctively shouted on my mother. I could hear something stir on the other side of the house, but as I began to breathe a sigh of relief that my parents were coming to save me, the bunk bed suddenly started to shake violently as if gripped by an earthquake scraping against the wall. I could hear the sheets below me thrashing around as if tormented by malice. I did not want to jump down to safety as I feared the thing in the bottom bunk would reach out and grab me, pulling me into the darkness, so I stayed there, white knuckles clenching my own blanket like a shroud of protection. The wait seemed like an eternity. The door finally, and thankfully, burst open, and I lay bathed in light while the bottom bunk, the resting place of my unwanted visitor, lay empty and peaceful. I cried and my mother consoled me. Tears of fear followed by relief streamed down my face. Yet through all of the horror and relief, I did not tell her why I was so upset. I cannot explain this, but it was as though whatever had been in that bunk would return if I even so much as spoke of it or uttered a single syllable of its existence. Whether that was the truth, I do not know, but as a child I felt as if that unseen menace remained close listening. My mother lay in the empty bunk, promising to stay there until morning. Eventually my anxiety diminished, tiredness pushed me back towards sleep, but I remained restless, waking several times momentarily to the sound of rustling bed sheets. I remember the next day wanting to go anywhere, be anywhere, but in that narrow, suffocating room. It was a Saturday, and I played outside quite happily with my friends. Although our house was not large, we were lucky to have a long-sloping garden in the back. We played there often, as much of it was overgrown, and we could hide in the bushes, climb in the huge sycamore tree which towered above all else, and easily imagine ourselves in the throes of a grand adventure in some untamed exotic land. As fun as it all was, occasionally my eye would turn to that small window, ordinary, slight, and innocuous. But for me that thin boundary was a looking glass into a strange cold pocket of dread. Outside, the lush green surroundings of our garden, filled with the smiling faces of my friends, could not extinguish the creeping feeling clawing its way up my spine, each hair standing on end. The feeling of something in that room watching me play, waiting for the night when I would be alone, eagerly filled with hate. It may sound strange to you, but by the time my parents ushered me back into that room for the night, I said nothing. I didn't protest, I didn't even make an excuse as to why I couldn't sleep there. I simply and sullenly walked into that room, climbed a few steps into the top bunk, and then waited. As an adult, I would be telling everyone about my experience, but even at that age I felt almost silly to be talking about something which I really had no evidence for. I would be lying, however, if I said this was my primary reason. I still felt that this thing would be enraged if I so much as spoke of it.
Why did I go this way?
It's funny how certain words can remain hidden from my mind, no matter how blatant or obvious they are. One word came to me that second night, lying there in the darkness, alone, frightened, aware of a rotten change in the atmosphere, the thickening of the air as if something had displaced it.
Turn right.
As I heard the first casual twists of the bed sheets below, the first anxious increase of my heartbeats at the realization that something was once again in the bottom bunk, that word, a word which had been sent into exile, filtered up through my consciousness, breaking free of all repression, gasping for air, screaming, etching and carving itself into my mind. Ghost. As this thought came to me, I noticed that my unwelcome visitor had ceased moving. The bed sheets lay calm and dormant, but they had been replaced by something far more hideous. A slow, rhythmic, rasping breath heaved
Have a good night.
below. I could imagine its chest rising and falling with each sordid, wheezing and garbled breath. I shuddered and hoped beyond all hope that it would leave without occurrence. The house lay as it had the previous night, in a thick blanket of darkness. Silence prevailed, all but for the perverted breath of might as yet unseen bunkmate. I lay there terrified. I just wanted this thing to go, to leave me alone. What did it want? Then something unmistakably chilling transpired. It moved. It moved in a way different from before. When it threw itself around in the bottom bunk, it seemed unrestrained, without purpose, almost animalistic. This movement, however, was driven by awareness, with purpose, with a goal in mind. For that thing lying there in the darkness, that thing which seemed intent on terrorizing a young boy, calmly and nonchalantly sat up. Its laboured breathing had become louder, as now only a mattress and a few flimsy wooden slats separated my body from the unearthly breath below. I lay there, my eyes filled with tears. A fear which mere words cannot relate to you or anyone else coursed through my veins. I would not have believed that this fear could have been heightened, but I was so wrong. I imagined what this thing would look like sitting there listening from below my mattress, hoping to catch the slightest hint that I was awake. Imagination then turned to an unnerving reality. It began to touch the wooden slats which my mattress sat on. It seemed to caress them carefully, running what I imagined to be fingers and hands across the surface of the wood. Then, with great force, it prodded angrily between two slats into the mattress. Even through the padding, it felt as though someone had viciously stuck their fingers into my side. I let out an almighty cry, and the wheezing, shaking, and moving thing in the bunk below replied in kind by violently vibrating the bunk as it had done the night before. Small flakes of paint powdered onto my blanket from the wall as the frame of the bed scraped along it backwards and forwards. Once again I was bathed in light, and there stood my mother, loving, caring as she always was, with a comforting hug and calming words which eventually subdued my hysteria. Of course she asked what was wrong, but I could not say it. I dared not say. I simply said one word over and over and over again. Night air. This pattern of events continued for weeks, if not months. Night after night I would awaken to the sound of rustling sheets. Each time I would scream so as to not provide this abomination with time to prod and feel for me. With each cry the bed would shake violently, stopping with the arrival of my mother, who would spend the rest of the night in the bottom bunk, seemingly unaware of the sinister force torturing her son nightly. Along the way I managed to feign illness a few times and come up with other less than truthful reasons for sleeping in my parents' bed, but more often than not I would be alone for the first few hours of each night in that place. The room where the light from outside did not sit right, alone with that thing. With time you can become desensitized to almost anything, no matter how horrific. I had come to realize that for whatever reason this thing could not harm me when my mother was present. I am sure the same would have been said for my father, but as loving as he was, waking him from sleep was almost impossible. After a few months I
move sideways so that
nightly visitor. Do not mistake this for some unearthly friendship. I detested the thing. I still feared it greatly, as I could almost sense its desires and its personality, if you could call it that, one filled with a perverted and twisted hatred, yet longing for me of perhaps all things. My greatest fears were realized in the winter. The days grew short, and the longer nights merely provided this wretch with more opportunities. It was a difficult time for my family. My grandmother, a wonderfully kind and gentle woman, had deteriorated greatly since the death of my grandfather. My mother was trying her best to keep her in the community as long as possible. However, dementia is a cruel and degenerative illness, robbing a person of their memories one day at a time. Soon she recognized none of us, and it became clear that she would need to be moved from her house to a nursing home. Before she could be moved, my grandmother had a particularly difficult few nights, and my mother decided that she would stay with her. As much as I loved my grandmother and felt nothing but anguish at her illness, to this day I feel guilty that my first thoughts were not of her, but of what my nightly visitor may do should it become aware of my mother's absence, her presence being the one thing which I was sure was protecting me from the full horror of this thing's reach. I rushed home from school that day and immediately wrenched the bed sheets and mattress from the lower bunk, removing all of the slats and placing an old desk, a chest of drawers, and some chairs which we kept in a cupboard where the bottom bunk used to be. I told my father I was making an office which he found adorable, but I would be damned if I'd give that thing a place to sleep for one more night. As darkness approached I lay there knowing my mother was not in the house. I did not know what to do. My only impulse was to sneak into her jewelry box and take a small family crucifix which I had seen there before. While my family was not very religious at that age, I still believed in God and hoped that somehow this would protect me. Although fearful and anxious, while gripping the crucifix under my pillow tightly in one hand, sleep eventually came, and as I drifted off to dream, I hoped that I would awaken in the morning without incidents. Unfortunately, that night was the most terrifying of all. I awoke gradually. The room was once again dark. As my eyes adjusted, I could gradually make out the window and the doors and the walls, some toys on a shelf, and even to this date I shudder to think of it, for there was no noise, no rustling of sheets, no movement at all. The room felt lifeless yet not empty. The nightly visitor, that unwelcome wheezing hate,
let's try to at least finish this.
Night after night was not in the bottom bunk, it was in my bed. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Utter terror had shaken the very sound from my voice. I lay motionless. If I could not scream, I did not want to let it know I was awake. I had not yet seen it, I could only feel it. It was obscured under my blanket. I could see its outline and I could feel its presence, but I dared not look. The weight of it pressed down on top of me, the sensation I will never forget. When I say that hours passed, I do not exaggerate. Laying there motionless in the darkness, I was every bit a scared and frightened young boy. If it had been during the summer months, it would have been light by then, but the grasp of winter is long and unrelenting, and I knew it would be hours before sunrise, the sunrise which I yearned for. I was a timid child by nature, but I reached a breaking point, a moment where I could wait no more, where I could survive under this intimately deviant abomination no longer. Fear can sometimes wear you out, make you threadbare, a shell of nerves, leaving only the slightest trace of you behind. I had to get out of that bed. Then I remembered the crucifix. My hand still lay underneath the pillow, but it was empty. I slowly moved my wrist around to find it, minimizing as best I could the sound and vibrations caused, but it could not be found. I had either knocked it off of the top bunk, or it had, I could not even bear to think of it being taken from my hand. Without the crucifix, I lost any sense of hope. Even at such a young age, you can be acutely aware of
Hello, Big
death
Daddy.
and intensely frightened of it. I knew I was going to die in that bed if I lay there dormant, passive, doing nothing. I had to leave that room behind, but how? Should I leap from the bed and hope that I make it to the door?
Okay, let's find
What if it is faster than me? Or should I slowly slip out of that top bunk, hoping to not disturb my uncanny bedfellow?
Go straight on.
Realizing that it had not stirred when I moved, trying to find the crucifix, I began to have the strangest of thoughts. What if it was asleep? It hadn't so much as breathed since I had woken up.
Then,
Perhaps it was resting, believing that it had
why
finally
doesn't it
got
show
me,
anything? Showing me
that I
stuff.
was finally in its grasp.
Thank you.
Or perhaps it was toying with me. After all, it had been doing just that for countless nights, and now with me under it, pinned against my mattress with no mother to protect me, maybe it was
showing me
holding
stuff.
off, savoring its
Hold on,
victory
go
until
back
the
over to
last possible
Tickfinity.
moment.
As
Like
it
a
is,
wild animal
that's
savoring its
connected.
prey, I tried to
Connected.
breathe as shallowly as possible, and mustering every ounce of courage I could,
So if I
reached
go over here,
with my right hand and began to peel the blanket off of me.
we refresh
What
it.
I found under those
Refresh
covers
it.
almost stopped my heart. I did not see it, but as my hand moved the blanket, it brushed against something smooth and cold, something which felt instinctively like a gaunt hand.
Thank you for the
I held my
heartbeat.
breath in terror, as I was sure it must now have known that I was
Thank you
awake.
so much.
Nothing. It did not stir, it felt dead.
How's it going?
After a few moments, I placed my hand carefully further down the blanket and
Listen.
felt a thin, poorly formed form of my confidence and almost twisted sense of curiosity grew as I moved down further to a disproportionately larger bicep muscle. The arm was outstretched, lying across my chest with the hand resting on my left shoulder,
I don't
as if
always
it had grabbed
hesitant
me in
in-
my sleep. I realized that I would have to move this
Aw,
without
thank you, thank you,
appendage
thank
if I
you.
even so much as hoped to
Thank you,
escape its
Sandra.
grasp.
Thank you for the
Some
heartbeat.
reason,
I
the
appreciate it.
torn, ragged clothing on the shoulder of this nighttime invader stopped me in my tracks.
Alright,
Fear
Lala, have a good night.
and in my chest as I
Thank you so
recoiled in
much.
disgust at the touch of straggling
I'm
hair.
finishing this one little
I could not bring
truck
myself to touch its face, although
delivery
this
thing,
very day was
and then I'm
felt
probably getting off.
Decoded move.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the heartbeat and stuff, everybody.
It was subtle, but its grip on my shoulder and across
Wants me to
my
go
body
left.
strengthened. No
My
doubt
driver
it
needs
was
some
because
sleep.
I wanted to cry. As its hand and arm slowly
Well, let's
crawled
get my
around
driver
me,
some
my right leg brushed along the cool wall, which the bed
Oh, thank you for
overlaid.
that. Ah!
In that room, this was the strangest. I realized that this clutching, rancid thing, which drew great delight from violating a young boy's bed, was not entirely on top of me. It was sticking out from the wall like a spider.
That was kind of delayed, wasn't it?
Suddenly, its grip moved from a slow
Why does it
tight
say-
to a
oh.
sudden squeeze.
It says
clawed at
you
my
did it
clothes as if
twice.
frightened that the opportunity would soon pass.
Oh, okay.
I
You want to
fought
plunger?
against it,
Oh,
but the
okay.
elongated arm was too
You're on
strong.
plunger guy.
Its head rose up, writhing
Plunger boy.
under the blanket.
Yeah, that's the one I've been streaming the whole time, and then I
fought
flipped
my
over
way
to
off, I cried and
stream
suddenly
for
my voice
Tbone
began to
Slice.
yell, screaming, but no one came. Then I realized why it was so eager to suddenly strike, why this thing had to have me now. Through my window, that window which seemed to
So I don't know
represent
exactly how I'm
something
gonna do it.
outside
I want to run. I want to host like boxes as well because I mean I
could just hold on to it would soon be gone. As I
I don't know if I
fought
should
the
host
the
boxes.
parasite shifted slowly, pulling itself up my chest,
Is my
now poking out from under the blanket, wheezing, coughing.
I don't know if it's I don't know if you'd call it like greediness or something. But like being the host, you get a percentage of everybody's diamonds. So if anybody gets diamonds, then you get a percentage of it. And I think it's like 25% or something, or a third. I don't know.
I passed out as its scrawny
Is it really kind of like
squeezing the very life from me? I awoke to my father.
like when I was in somebody else's live, and then someone threw me like a jellyfish, which is like what 1,000 diamonds. And then what I gained through there, I had a total of maybe like 1.2 to 1,200 diamonds. Out of the 1,200 diamonds, I only got to keep what 843. I think it was. So that kind of made me sad and sort of mad because I'm like, why am I only getting 843 when I had 1.2k? It really bothered me because that means that it's a third, right? Or a quarter. Quarter of the whole thing was given to the host, which is good. I like having the host and probably not the host, but
call it superstition if you will, but as I said, I cannot discount conventional
if
explanations.
one of my like, you know,
hallucination or that of an overactive imagination.
one of my groups come in and give me stuff while I'm in someone else's live,
on the other side of
it
the house, and my parents took that
kind of
strangely suffocating, elongated
bugs me a little bit.
They said they did
Know why?
room just one big enough.
Maybe I don't, it's not even. It's not like a jealousy.
It lasted 10 days.
It's more just like, I mean, this person gave this to me, and now I can only get like 3/4 of it.
Horrific experience I had as an 8-year-old child, many have encouraged.
If someone throws big stuff at me, like I don't know, I'm trying to get over myself.
Do so as I have felt unsettled since I broke my silence. Sleep has not come easy to me these last few nights. My skepticism
Get over myself.
resilient, and as such I will tell of what I experienced in the other room. This won't be as long as what occurred only took place over a few days, but that was more than enough for me. If you recalled, after that unwelcome nightly visitor left me, I was moved into another bedroom a year later. This room was much larger than the previous one and had a warm and welcoming atmosphere to it. Some places feel bad. The room before felt fouled, but this one did not.
This won't be too much longer.
I was given a normal
Or 85
bed. This one was taken apart
miles.
and thrown out, a welcome sight I might add. I loved my new room. I enjoyed the space for all of my toys. I was happy that the place was large enough to have my friends drop by, but most of all I was relieved to just be out of that uneasy foreboding part of the house. On the first night I slept more soundly than I had done for a long time. Of course I still moved my bed several feet from the wall. I told my mother that I and my friends liked to use the gap between the bed and wall as a hiding place when we were playing. I awoke the next day feeling refreshed and relaxed. As I lay there watching some of my favourite cartoons on a small portable television, I noticed something
For 15 more minutes.
an old
9,
brown armchair which
10,
had always been
25, so 15 more
my
minutes.
bed, large and looming.
And then we can turn off
It
to
was
a
frayed
slice.
and worn, having been given to us as part of a suite by my cousin, but it had been used many times even by then. The chair itself was not unusual, but what unsettled me was that I could have sworn that before I had went to sleep, the chair had been facing away from the bed. Out in the cold light of day, the chair was facing me. I assumed one of my parents had moved it while I slept, probably looking for something which had been left there before we switched rooms. The second night was not as restful. It was around 11 p.m. and I could hear my parents' television from the other side of the house. The room was largely in darkness, the only illumination an orange hue drifting through my window from the street lights outside. I lay there content until I heard something quiet, yet unmistakable. At first I thought it was the sound of my own breath exhaling and inhaling as I rested, but when I stopped for a moment, the quiet, almost inaudible sound of someone else in the room breathing in and out did not cease. It continued rhythmically and without pause. I lay there in the darkness, but while I was still recovering from the terror instilled in me from my experiences in my previous bedroom, I was not entirely afraid. The breathing was so distant and unlike the wheezing I had heard during my encounter with that thing in the wall that I remained calm, and even at that early age I believed that it was so subtle that it was probably my imagination playing tricks on me. Still I took no chances. I stepped out of bed, walked across the room and turned the light on. The sound had gone. I stared at that old worn armchair facing the foot of my bed, which was within reaching distance of where I slept, and turned it around to face the other way. I had no real reason to do so, but something about it sitting there filled me with dread. The third night I was not so fearless. Again I awoke in darkness. Lying on my back, I stared up at the ceiling, which seemed to happily absorb the dim orange light from the street. The tree outside my window swayed in a calm breeze, casting a strange collection of improbable moving shadows across the room. I could hear nothing but the long and distant hum of the city's night traffic. Just as I began to drift back into sleep, I heard it creak from the bottom of my bed as if something had moved or shifted its weight on the floor. I raised my head, peering through the darkness, but saw nothing strange. Everything sat as it had done throughout the day. Nothing was out of place.
Oh my god.
I gazed across the room, some comics on the floor, a few boxes which had still to be unpacked, the armchair, I moved still facing away from the bottom of my bed. There was nothing sinister here. I was now fully awake, glancing over at my television, considering whether or not to enjoy some late night TV. I'd have to keep the volume low, of course, as my older brother would hear it in the next room and no doubt tell me to switch it off. Just as I sat up fully in bed, I heard it again. A low creak accompanied by a sound, the sound of the slightest of movements. I looked again at the room. The dim orange shadows cast by the leaves hanging by my window now took on a more menacing form. I still saw no reason to be afraid. I stared at the chair at the end of my bed and saw nothing unusual about it. It's quite common for the mind to take a moment to fully come to terms with what it is seeing. It takes time to put the full horror of what is in front of you together into a moment.
Yeah, this is what happens. You get highway hypnosis. Fall asleep a little bit.
Staring at that old worn armchair in the dark, but what I was also staring at was a person sitting in it. In the dim light I could only see the outline of the back of its head, the rest obscured by the spine of the chair. I sat motionless, staring, praying, hoping that my eyes were being misled by their surroundings. The slow creak of movement as it shifted in its battered throne chilled me to my very core. This was no mere trick of the dark. Then it shifted onto its right side. I knew what it was doing. It was turning to look at me. It was difficult to make out, for even in that room it seemed darker than everything around it. I saw what looked like a collection of long fingers slip over the crest of the chair, and then another. The room was silent but for the sound of this thing shuffling in its seat and the crash of my racing heart. At first I could only make out the outline of its forehead, but then it began to rise up, revealing 2 pinpoints of light in the dark recesses of its deeply set eye sockets. It was staring at me. I screamed, and within a moment my brother and mother came into the room, switching the light on, asking if I'd had another bad dream. I sat speechless, barely acknowledging them, staring intently at the now empty armchair. I was only in that room for another few days before we suddenly moved. I saw nothing for the remaining nights except for my last sleep in that room, where I woke to the warm air of something breathing into my ear. I jumped out of bed, turning the light on. The slow rhythmic breath of something unseen remained louder than before. I spent the rest of that night on the couch in the living room. 2 years later I slept soundly in my bed in our new house. There had been no other incidences, and I was sure whatever strangeness had plagued me in that little average suburban home. I was, however, left
with speed zone. Why are we reducing speed over here?
In my opinion, the watcher in that armchair was a different entity to the thing in the elongated room. Had one last surprise in store for me. Like an animal claiming its territory, I was not entirely out with their grasp. For one last terrifying moment I
just need to finish this one.
I lay there sound asleep too.
Just need to wake up, finish this one.
I was in the throes of a nightmare, and suddenly
wake up, finish this one.
I was safe and sound in my bed. The room was darker than usual. I breathed a sigh of relief, as one does when waking from a nightmare. But the room was so dark. I could see nothing at all, as if something had snuffed out the light. I chuckled to myself, realizing that I must have pulled my blanket up and over my face while sleeping. The cotton blanket felt cool against me, but the air was a little too warm, almost stifling. Just as I was about to remove the blanket for some air, I heard it for the last time. I heard it. The rhythmic breathing of the watcher at the end of my bed. Fear gripped me, followed by anger and
I just need to finish this one. We're almost there. Let's just keep telling ourselves that we're almost there.
I decided to speak to it. Perhaps this thing did not mean to harm me, perhaps it was unaware of the terror it had caused. Surely a young boy deserved some mercy. As the breathing grew louder and closer, I began to cry. I could feel its presence on the other side of the blanket, its breath hanging over me like a stagnant wind. Through the tears I uttered two words which surely would put an end to all of this. Please stop. The breathing began to change. It became more.
Oh my god, we gotta get there real quick.
I could hear something shuffling next to me, standing close.
Stay awake.
The breathing then moved first
Stay
back
awake.
to the foot of my bed and then slowly across the
We're
room
almost there.
to the hallway.
One short ride.
Half crying, half elated, I lay in the still darkness, my face still covered by the blanket. You may consider this a victory of some sort, but I do not. If those things were real, I know now beyond a shadow of a doubt that their intentions were not misconstrued, they were twisted, filled with malice. I would normally never use such a word to describe anything, but it's as close to evil as I hope I ever come. How do I know that? I'll tell you how. Moments after that thing seemed to have left the house, something pressed forcefully down on top of the blanket with great strength against my face. I could feel a large hand with long, thin fingers wrapping the covers around my skull, its nails imprinted upon me like razor-sharp ridges. I managed to slide down into the gap between the bed and the wall, quickly making my escape, clambering and screaming out of my room, waking my family. Make no mistake, that thing in the darkness tried to smother me.
Okay, we can do it.
Part 3, my fears realized. A few days ago I
Yeah, I wouldn't be a good truck driver. See, I'm falling asleep and stuff, and I'm playing the game. So, we're just gonna keep talking. Keep ourselves awake. We have just a little bit more to go.
Should I speak of it, that those things
I can bypass, good.
once again wreak havoc on my life. In the name of science and reason, I confronted those fears and set out to vanquish those tormented memories once and for all by sharing them with others, exposing them for what I believe they were, the delusions of a troubled child. I have held onto my skepticism and rationality for dear life. I have allowed them to define me, but this morning I was presented with verifiable physical evidence. Evidence of what I do not know, but it cannot be ignored, and it seems strange to me that the last few days have been so tainted by apprehension and misfortune after finally breaking my silence that I can no longer rely upon entirely conventional explanations.
We're almost there, 66 miles.
Traumatic experiences I had as a child, I have been plagued by an overwhelming sense of unease. Initially, I attributed this to the fear I had experienced in simply recounting and reliving those terrible events in my mind, but as the days passed, it felt like so much more. The feeling of impending doom consumed my every thought, while sleep came to me restless. Each morning I
58 more miles.
on edge, as if deprived of sleep for an age.
How much left?
Nothing overtly frightening happened during the first few nights.
Almost
No
done.
hesitation, no unwelcome bedfellows, no wheezing breath reaching out from deep within my bedroom walls, but I had that distantly familiar feeling of not being alone. Do not misunderstand, I did not sense someone in the room with me. I did not hear, smell, or feel anything remotely supernatural, but throughout my days and nights I have sensed something subtle, almost on the periphery of my awareness, the feeling that something is on its way, something is coming, like the first few stagnant blasts.
Why is this taking so long?
Heralding the arrival of a lurching and stoppable.
Probably just because I'm tired. Why? Feels like it's taking forever.
Grew with each passing day, pushing its way.
But we're almost there. 42 miles.
Form of cancerous infection.
41 miles.
Tried to focus my attention on
39 miles.
in a vain attempt to fill my mind up
38.
the thoughts, hopefully leaving no room for
And 37.
memories, but those thoughts came to me nonetheless. My anxiety gained momentum until I could
Keep
think
right.
of nothing else. I had to do something. I had studied psychology for years at university. With this, I knew that anxiety is often the result of a loss of control, and that one of the most effective ways to combat it is to empower oneself. This is what I intended to do.
Oh my god.
Call it foolhardy, but I was going to go back to that place.
29 miles. We're almost there.
Events took place. I
I'm calling asleep, guys.
And expose them for what they were, nonsense.
Falling asleep.
It was an hour's drive to my old home, but it was one filled with elation. I was confident, at ease, happy I was in control now, and nothing was going to get in my way from showing that the place I had feared my entire life was nothing but an average humdrum, harmless little house. Gleefully negotiating the country roads and then motorway, finally I made it to the city. Gradually the streets began to take on a familiar appearance. Memories of playing in that neighborhood came flooding back to me to play park with my favorite slides and ash pitch where we used to play football, my schoolyard filled with hide and seek and friendships long since abandoned but never forgotten. My mind wandered through those memories like a prodigal son walking home, wandered so much so that before I realized it I was pulling into the street where I had once lived. The road was long and disappeared far
So
out
close.
in the distance,
So
finally
close.
entering into a
Almost
sharp
there.
turn. It was an old neighborhood
So
and had
close.
been planned and built long before the advent of cars. It was evident by the narrowness of its roads, creating a strangely
So close.
claustrophobic feeling as if the houses on each side rose up
Almost
literally
there.
by. I slowed my speed and cast my eye over each house that I
Where's
passed.
everything? I can't see anything.
It was a uniform place with every house looking not dissimilar. My heart
11 miles. We're so close.
as a cold chill crawled up my spine. There was a house.
And then
It was late afternoon and the street was quiet, almost lonely. I stared at that little place wondering how such an ordinary home could have instilled so much fear in me. I had
Hey Stan, I am really tired and I'm almost gonna be done. We're just finishing this little truck thing, but I'm doing good. I've had a long day. And now I'm getting like super drowsy. So we're finishing this load and then we're actually going to be moving on. We're going to be going to bed because we need some rest. Unlike falling asleep playing the game. But I'm doing good. I went to the Renaissance Fair with my partner, celebrating someone's birthday, so we were there all day, walking around a whole bunch. Yeah, I hear ya. It's cool. Pick someone else. Yeah. It sounds good. It's cool, man. It's fine, Stan. I mean, you're the man. You're the man. But yeah, I'm literally gonna finish this little like delivery thing and go to bed. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming by. Yes, thank you. You have a wonderful day. Thank you for stopping by and thank you for considering me. I appreciate it. Oop, we have 6 miles left. We're almost there. So close. I'm like falling asleep here, man. For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my god, I hit a fucking rail.
I could see a television
I gotta fix my fucking truck.
A coffee table with magazines strewn across it, various pieces.
Can I go to the right and then to the left?
And a couple of coffee cups sitting on the windowsill,
That's
all covered in
but yeah, thank you, Stan.
thought the house was
I appreciate it oh so very much.
Dust lying over everything, accompanied by the occasional spider's web.
But I'm literally falling asleep.
Those recent occupants had left in a hurry and never returned. Clambering through waist-high grass and bushes, I eventually arrived at that innocuous little window at the back of the house. The very sight of it frightened me, but this was mere memory and not the strange feeling of being watched from within as I had experienced as a child. Peering in, the room looked eerily familiar. I suppose there is little that can be done with a room so narrow, but through the dirt-covered glass the room looked almost unchanged from when I had slept in it. A bed, a set of drawers, and what looked like an assortment of toys on the floor.
Alright,
A profound sense of anger washed over me momentarily, but I shook it quickly from my mind. The room was clearly that of a child's, and the thought of that thing harming another innocent filled me with contempt for such a thought, and within me swelled the desire to protect any child from such an abomination. As I gazed at that wall, of which a bed lay alongside it, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. For a moment, and it was for only the slightest, I thought I saw the blanket on top of the bed move. More than that, through that window pane I could have sworn I heard a wheezing gasp. Closing my eyes tightly, I repeated another scientific mantra. Science does not owe its debts to imagination. Opening my eyes, I saw nothing but an empty bedroom. No foul spirits, no unknown.
Here we go. Here's the end here, though. We gotta go fix the truck and park it for the night.
As if that all was well with world for the first time in many days. You may think that it was wishful thinking, but I genuinely felt that I had shown myself that there was nothing to be scared of other than my overactive imagination. It was starting to get dark, and I wanted to be home before the night. Filled with confidence now that my anxieties were behind me, there was one last thing I needed to do. When we had left that house, we did so in a hurry. As a child, it was disorientating, even frightening to leave everything I knew behind, but there was one thing left which I always wondered about. At the bottom of the garden stood a sycamore tree which looked to be even older than the house. I was amazed at how unchanged it was. I had grown up, gone on to pastures new, but the old sycamore still stood wise, warm, almost friendly in its appearance. I think it's a rite of passage for any child to have a place to hide things. It's often their first experience with independence, something removed from any authority figure. For me, my stash was halfway up the old sycamore. I'm sure I must have looked like a fool, but I happily and gleefully climbed the tree with abandon. The configuration of the branches had changed in places, but overall the happy memories of playing amongst the limbs of the old sycamore, of having a little piece of the world to myself away.
Okay, last thing we're doing, we're bringing this thing to the shop.
How much remained unchanged. Halfway up, I caught my breath and smiled.
There's a shop right here. We can gas and we can
The
sleep.
tree lay a hollow. Whether it had been created by an animal, or perhaps the tug of a gale on a weakened branch long ago, I do not know, but it was where I kept things. If I found something which I was sure would be taken from me for being inappropriate into the hollow, it would go. The truth is, though, that the majority of the items inside were not very interesting, mostly just toys and rarely exotic pieces of contraband like a slingshot or some smoke bombs. I had no reason to hide the toys, but when I was young it felt adventurous to have a secret. The hollow was dark and filled halfway with rotting leaves, no doubt deposited there from countless autumns. Nevertheless, I reached deep inside to see what remained. I couldn't believe it. I had found a toy that I had hidden there before we moved all those years ago. I could feel the plastic in my hand, its sharp edges unmistakable, but the leaves and darkness obscured its view from me as I struggled to remove it from the thick, wet mixture of rotting leaves and rainwater. It seemed to be caught amongst a collection of small twigs. The reason I was so excited was that I knew that I had left one of my favourite toys behind, a plastic First World War British soldier. It may not sound like much, but I had grown up on my family's stories of my grandfather's adventures during both wars, and while he had passed away before I was born, I would often act out exactly the stories, with this small soldier in the role of the hero, my intrepid grandfather. At the time, I thought a hollow the perfect hiding place for a soldier. My delight, however, quickly turned to horror. I felt sick to my stomach, for as I pulled the soldier out, I realized it was not my toy, but something else entirely. Stuffed into the back of the hollow amongst the sludge, and now in my hand was the skeletal remains of a small animal. The bones crunched together in my grip as the few small flakes of hair and flesh left on it putrefied between my fingers. I almost lost my balance as the rotten and potent smell of death escaped through my moist grasp, invading my senses. I climbed back down carefully, dejected. There was nothing else in the hollow. My toy was gone, probably taken by another child during the subsequent years. What remained of the poor animal I buried under some loose earth in the garden. I left that place immediately. Despite my unfortunate encounter in the hollow, I still felt empowered. That I had actually plucked up the courage to revisit that place to see how ordinary it really was made me feel in control once more of my faculties. I did not at that time require anything other than a conventional explanation. I said goodbye to the old neighborhood, to that bad memory once and for all, and began to
Bathtub, let's repair it.
By the time I had driven onto the motorway, something had begun to filter through from the back of my subconscious. At first I disregarded it, dismissing it as my imagination, but as the sun shone its last and dipped below the horizon, I sensed the growing of a compulsion in me. An idea which seemed to have been born and nurtured for no good reason, no rationale, no sound causal footing, but one which had to be followed at all costs. I must get home. I increased my speed, zipping sporadically.
Alright, on that note, I'm gonna say goodbye.
Motorway, looking in the rear view mirror, keeping an eye on what might be.
I'm gonna say have a wonderful day, wonderful night, whatever. Have a good morning, evening, night, whatever time it might be for you. Have a happy time zone. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful.
I tore along the road I'd beat.
Thank you for
sweat lashed off of me.
listening to
What
this
was happening to me?
lovely background
Please
music
just
sound.
let me go home. White knuckled.
Close that out. Alright, thank you everybody. You guys have a wonderful day. My pleasure, boy. Go Trovo. Goodbye, Trovo. Have a wonderful. Then we go to goodbye, Kick. later. YouTube, like it. Like, if you like hanging out with this kind of style of gaming, where you're like just really slow, not that much conversation, you'll ask. Feel free to subscribe if you'd like.